The prison mailroom fell completely silent. Officer Daniel Brooks stared at the stack of letters spread across the metal table. His hands were shaking. Around him, 3 detectives looked just as shocked. For almost 2 years, inmate Ethan Carter had written hundreds of letters from his prison cell. Hundreds. Every week, more letters left the prison. At first, nobody thought much about it. Prisoners wrote letters all the time. Some wrote to family. Some wrote to friends. Some wrote to lawyers. But Ethan's letters were different. The detectives had finally discovered a hidden pattern buried inside them. And what they found made their blood run cold. Every letter contained pieces of a secret message. Not one message. Many messages. The letters were connected like pieces of a giant puzzle. A puzzle that pointed to a crime nobody knew existed. Officer Brooks slowly looked up from the table. "What if we're already too late?" he whispered. Detective Ryan Cooper grabbed the final letter and unfolded it. His eyes widened. No. The room went silent again. Because hidden inside that last letter was something even worse. A warning. Someone outside the prison was about to make their next move. And if the detectives were right, an innocent person could disappear before sunrise. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. The detectives rushed toward the door. But none of them knew if they could stop what was already happening. And none of them knew how one quiet prisoner had managed to hide such a dangerous secret for so long. To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. 16 months earlier, Blackwood State Prison sat on a lonely stretch of land surrounded by fences, security lights, and endless fields. The prison looked cold even during summer. Every morning started the same way. Metal doors slammed. Guards shouted instructions. Prisoners lined up for breakfast. Among them was Ethan Carter, 32 years old. Brown hair. Calm voice. Quiet personality. Most inmates stayed away from him. Not because he was dangerous. Because he was strange. While other prisoners played cards or watched television, Ethan spent most of his time writing. He always carried a notebook. He always asked for more paper. And every week, he mailed several letters. Nobody knew exactly who received them. Officer Brooks noticed it before anyone else. One afternoon, he watched Ethan drop another bundle of envelopes into the prison mailbox. "Writing again?" Brooks asked. Ethan smiled. "I like keeping in touch." "With who?" "People." That was all Ethan would say. The answer felt odd, but not suspicious. At least not yet. Weeks passed. Then months. The letters kept coming. Sometimes 5 in a week. Sometimes 10. Sometimes more. The prison mail clerk joked that Ethan probably kept the post office in business. Ethan would simply smile and continue writing. One rainy evening, Officer Brooks worked a late shift. As he walked through cell block C, he noticed light shining from Ethan's cell. Most inmates were asleep. But Ethan was sitting on his bunk, writing again. Page after page. Line after line. Brooks stopped outside the bars. "You never get tired of writing?" Ethan looked up. His smile appeared again. The same smile he always wore. "No." "What do you write about?" "Stories." "What kind of stories?" "The kind people remember." The answer sent a strange chill through Brooks. He couldn't explain why. It was just a feeling. The kind feeling experienced officers learned not to ignore. The next morning, something unusual happened. A letter arrived at the prison addressed to Ethan. That wasn't strange. Prisoners received mail every day. What was strange was the return address. There wasn't one. No name. No city. Nothing. Just a blank envelope. The mail clerk frowned. "That's weird." Officer Brooks agreed. But prison rules allowed the letter. So Ethan received it. The moment Ethan saw the envelope, something changed. Only for a second. His eyes lit up. Then his normal expression returned. That tiny reaction was enough for Brooks to notice. For the first time, he began wondering whether Ethan's letters were hiding something. Days later, another envelope arrived. Blank again. Then another. And another. Soon, dozens of mysterious letters were arriving from unknown senders. Nobody could explain why. Then one night, during a routine inspection, Officer Brooks opened the small storage box beneath Ethan's bunk. Inside was a notebook. At first, it looked ordinary. Until he opened it. Every page contained lists of names. Hundreds of names. Some crossed out. Some circled. Some marked with strange symbols. Brooks felt his stomach tighten. Because one of the names had been circled only hours earlier. And that same night, prison security received an urgent phone call from outside the prison. A woman had suddenly vanished without a trace. Her name was written in Ethan Carter's notebook. Officer Daniel Brooks felt his heart pounding as he stared at the name in Ethan Carter's notebook. The missing woman's name was Emily Turner. Only a few hours earlier, prison security had received an urgent call from local police about her disappearance. Now her name sat right in front of him, circled in black ink. Brooks quickly closed the notebook and carried it to the prison administration office. Within an hour, detectives arrived at Blackwood State Prison. Detective Ryan Cooper led the investigation. He listened carefully as Brooks explained everything. The strange letters. The missing return addresses. The notebook full of names. And now the disappearance. Detective Cooper looked through the notebook page by page. His expression grew more serious with each turn. "Do we know any of these other names?" he asked. The detectives began checking records. Most names belonged to ordinary people from different states. Teachers, store managers, truck drivers, office workers. Nothing connected them. At least not at first. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter remained calm in his cell. Almost too calm. When detectives questioned him, he answered politely. "Do you know Emily Turner?" Cooper asked. "No." "Then why is her name in your notebook?" Ethan shrugged. "I write lots of names." "Why?" "They help me remember things." "What things?" Ethan smiled. The same mysterious smile. "I don't remember." The interview went nowhere. For the next few days, detectives investigated every lead they could find. Emily Turner had disappeared after leaving work. Her car had been found abandoned near a highway rest stop. There were no signs of a struggle. No witnesses. No useful clues. It was as if she had simply vanished. The case attracted local news coverage. Families grew worried. Police searched nearby woods and neighborhoods. Nothing. Then Detective Cooper made a surprising discovery. Several names in Ethan's notebook belonged to people who had disappeared briefly in the past. Most had returned safely within days. At the time, their cases seemed unrelated. But now the pattern looked different. Much different. Cooper gathered his team. "I think these names mean something," he said. "What kind of something?" another detective asked. "I don't know yet. But this notebook wasn't random." The investigation shifted toward Ethan's letters. Thousands of pages had passed through prison mail over the previous 16 months. Detectives obtained copies wherever possible. The task was enormous. Boxes filled with letters were delivered to a secure evidence room. 4 days, investigators read page after page. Most seemed harmless. Stories, thoughts, weather observations, random conversations. Nothing suspicious. The work became frustrating. One detective even suggested they were chasing nothing. But Cooper refused to quit. His instincts told him something was hidden there. One evening, after hours of reviewing letters, a young analyst named Sarah Mitchell noticed something strange. She spread several letters across a table. "Look at this," she said. The detectives gathered around. Sarah pointed to certain words. They appeared ordinary by themselves. But when she highlighted specific words from multiple letters, a message began to emerge. A secret sentence. Everyone stared in disbelief. The letters contained coded information. Not obvious codes. Not numbers. Not symbols. Words hidden inside ordinary paragraphs. A message built across dozens of separate letters. Detective Cooper felt excitement rush through him. Finally, they had proof. Ethan had been communicating secretly with someone outside prison. The team immediately began analyzing more letters. As they worked, additional hidden messages appeared. Some mentioned locations. Others contained dates. A few referred to initials instead of names. The puzzle was enormous. But it was real. Very real. The next morning, detectives returned to Ethan's cell. This time they placed several decoded messages on the table. For the first time, Ethan's smile disappeared. Only for a moment. Then it returned. "Looks like you've been busy," Cooper said. Ethan glanced at the papers. "I like writing. We found your codes." Ethan remained silent. "Who are you talking to?" No answer. "Who's helping you outside?" Still nothing. The detective leaned closer. "Is Emily Turner alive?" For the first time, Ethan looked directly into Cooper's eyes. The room became quiet. Then Ethan spoke softly. "You should stop looking." Cooper frowned. "Why?" "Because you're seeing only part of the picture." "What does that mean?" Ethan leaned back in his chair. "If you keep digging, you'll find things you don't expect." The interview ended shortly afterward. Despite hours of questioning, Ethan revealed nothing useful. Yet his warning stayed in Cooper's mind. That night, investigators continued decoding letters. Around midnight, Sarah suddenly jumped from her chair. "I found another one." Everyone rushed over. This hidden message was different. Much different. Instead of locations or dates, it contained a complete instruction. A set of directions. The directions led to an abandoned storage facility outside town. Police immediately organized a search team. Within an hour, flashing lights surrounded the old building. Officers carefully entered the structure. Dust covered everything. Broken windows rattled in the wind. At first, the building appeared empty. Then one officer noticed fresh footprints. Someone had been there recently. Very recently. The team followed the tracks into a locked back room. The door was forced open. Everyone froze. Inside the room stood several filing cabinets. On top of one cabinet sat a photograph. Detective Cooper picked it up. His face turned pale. The picture showed Emily Turner. But she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a man investigators had never seen before. A man holding one of Ethan Carter's letters. And written across the back of the photograph were 4 chilling words. "You found this one." Then a loud crashing sound echoed from somewhere deeper inside the building. The crashing sound echoed through the abandoned storage facility. Every officer in the room turned toward the dark hallway. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Detective Ryan Cooper grabbed his flashlight. "Stay alert," he said. The search team carefully moved deeper into the building. Dust floated through the air. Old pipes creaked above them. The sound had come from somewhere near the back. As they approached, another noise rang out. Footsteps. Fast footsteps. Someone was running. "Police!" an officer shouted. The footsteps became quicker. The team rushed forward. They turned a corner just in time to see a shadow disappear through a broken door. The chase was on. Officers sprinted through narrow hallways and empty rooms. But the person seemed to know the building better than they did. Every turn led to another turn. Every hallway led to another hallway. Then suddenly, the footsteps stopped. The officers reached a large loading area. Empty. Completely empty. The person had vanished. Detective Cooper searched every corner. Nothing. No suspect. No answers. Only one thing remained behind. A small envelope lying on the floor. Cooper carefully picked it up. Written across the front were 3 words. For Detective Cooper. The team exchanged nervous looks. The envelope was sealed. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The message was short. "You're getting closer." That was all. No signature. No explanation. Just those 3 words. The discovery made everyone uneasy. Whoever was involved clearly knew the investigation was happening. And somehow, they seemed to be staying one step ahead. The next morning, the evidence collected from the storage facility was taken back for analysis. The filing cabinets contained hundreds of documents. Most appeared ordinary. Bills. receipts, business records. But hidden among them were photographs. Dozens of photographs. Many showed locations. Parking lots, restaurants, gas stations, parks. Others showed people. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. Detective Cooper noticed something disturbing. Several individuals in the photographs matched names from Ethan Carter's notebook. The same notebook found under his prison bunk. The pattern was growing larger. Much larger. But what did it mean? Days passed as investigators worked around the clock. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter continued his routine inside Blackwood State Prison. He wrote letters, read books, ate meals, and acted as though nothing unusual was happening. Officer Brooks couldn't understand it. Most prisoners under investigation became nervous. Some became angry. Others became scared. Ethan remained calm, almost as if he expected everything. One afternoon, Brooks stopped outside Ethan's cell. "You know they're finding more evidence." Ethan looked up from his notebook. "Maybe. They found photographs." Ethan simply nodded. Brooks studied him carefully. "Why don't you seem worried?" Ethan closed his notebook. Then he smiled. "The people who should be worried aren't in this prison." Those words stayed in Brooks's mind long after he walked away. A week later, investigators finally made a breakthrough. Sarah Mitchell had spent days analyzing the hidden messages inside Ethan's letters. Late one evening, she discovered something everyone else had missed. The messages weren't just instructions. They formed a timeline stretching back nearly 3 years. When she mapped everything together, a shocking pattern emerged. Every coded message matched a real-world event. Some involved missing persons reports. Others involved theft investigations. A few matched unsolved crimes. Detective Cooper stared at the evidence board. The room became silent, because the pattern suggested something unbelievable. Ethan Carter had somehow known details about crimes occurring while he sat inside prison. It made no sense. How could a prisoner locked behind bars know so much? The team worked through the night. As more information was connected, one fact became clear. Ethan wasn't acting alone. Someone outside was carrying out instructions. But who? The answer remained hidden. Then another surprise arrived. A prison employee reported unusual activity in the mailroom. Several older records had gone missing. Only records connected to Ethan's letters. Nothing else. Security footage was reviewed immediately. The investigators expected to find a stranger. Instead, they found something far more shocking. The footage showed a prison employee entering the records room after hours. A trusted employee. Someone who had worked at Blackwood State Prison for nearly 10 years. His name was Mark Benson. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. When questioned, Benson denied everything. He claimed he was organizing files. Nothing more. But the footage told a different story. Hours later, detectives obtained a warrant to search his home. What they found changed the entire investigation. Inside a locked desk drawer were dozens of copies of Ethan Carter's letters. There were also maps, photographs, and a notebook filled with handwritten notes. Many matched information from the coded messages. Detective Cooper could hardly believe it. The conspiracy had reached inside the prison itself. Mark Benson was arrested immediately. News of the arrest spread quickly through Blackwood State Prison. Officer Brooks rushed to Ethan's cell. This time, Ethan wasn't writing. He was simply sitting on his bunk, waiting. "You knew about Benson," Brooks said. Ethan looked up. "No." "Stop lying." Ethan remained silent. Brooks stepped closer. "Benson was helping you." For the first time in months, Ethan's calm expression seemed to crack. Only slightly. But Brooks noticed. Then Ethan said something unexpected. "Mark Benson wasn't the one you should be looking for." Brooks froze. "What?" Ethan stared toward the cell window. "There are others." The words hit Brooks like a punch. "How many?" Ethan slowly turned back. His expression had changed. The smile was gone. And for the first time, he looked genuinely concerned. Before he could answer, alarms suddenly exploded throughout the prison. Red emergency lights flashed across every corridor. Guards began shouting orders. Cell doors locked automatically. Officer Brooks grabbed his radio. What happened? The response came through seconds later. A trembling voice from Central Control. Officer down. Repeat, officer down. Brooks felt his stomach drop. Then the voice continued. And someone just escaped from the prison transport garage. A long pause followed. Then came the final sentence. The escaped person was Mark Benson. The entire prison went into chaos. Red lights flashed through every hallway of Blackwood State Prison. Loud alarms echoed like thunder, bouncing off the cold metal walls. Officer Daniel Brooks stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what he just heard. Mark Benson had escaped, and there had been an officer down during the transport chaos. Lockdown! Full lockdown! Guards shouted as heavy steel doors slammed shut one after another. Prisoners were ordered back into their cells. The sound of keys, radios, and running boots filled the air. But Brooks's mind was somewhere else. Benson wasn't just a prison employee. He was part of the puzzle. And now he was gone. Brooks rushed back toward Ethan Carter's cell. Detective Ryan Cooper was already there, standing outside the bars. Ethan was sitting calmly inside, watching everything. It was like he had been expecting this moment. "What is going on?" Cooper asked Ethan sharply. Ethan didn't move. "He's running," Ethan said quietly. Cooper narrowed his eyes. "You mean Benson?" Ethan nodded slowly. "And you knew this would happen?" Ethan looked down at his hands. "I didn't know when. Only that it would." That answer made Cooper even more frustrated. Outside, prison sirens continued to scream. Guards were searching every corner, every exit, every road leading away from Blackwood State Prison. But Benson had disappeared fast. Too fast. It felt planned. Like someone had prepared him for this escape. Meanwhile, inside the prison control room, more disturbing news came in. Security cameras near the transport garage had been cut for exactly 4 minutes. Just 4 minutes. But that was enough. During that gap, Mark Benson had vanished. Detectives rushed to analyze what little footage remained. And what they saw made everything worse. Before the cameras went dark, Benson was not running alone. Someone else was near him. A person wearing a prison guard uniform. But the face was unclear. Cooper stared at the screen. "So he had help inside the prison too," he whispered. Brooks felt his chest tighten. How deep did this go? Back in Ethan's cell, something changed. For the first time, Ethan stood up. Slowly, he walked toward the bars. "You need to understand something," Ethan said. Cooper stepped closer. "What?" Ethan looked directly at him. "This was never just about letters." A long silence followed. Then Ethan continued. "It's about signals." Brooks frowned. "Signals?" Ethan nodded. "Every letter I wrote wasn't just to communicate. It was to activate." Cooper's face hardened. "Activate what?" Ethan hesitated. Then he said something that made both men go silent. "People who were already waiting." Before Cooper could respond, a loud crash echoed somewhere deep inside the prison. Then another. And another. Guards shouted in confusion. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Emergency radios exploded with panic. Multiple cell blocks compromised. Security systems failing. Someone is overriding the controls. Brooks grabbed his radio. "This isn't possible. Who has access to the system?" A shaky voice replied. "It's not coming from outside." A pause. Then the voice returned, even more afraid. "It's coming from inside the prison network." Cooper turned sharply toward Ethan. Ethan was no longer smiling. His face was serious. Almost sad. Then he whispered, "I told you, there are others." At that exact moment, every cell door in Block D unlocked at the same time. Metal doors slid open in perfect sync. One by one. Slowly. Deliberately. And inside the darkness of each open cell, Prisoners began to step out. But something was wrong. They weren't running. They weren't panicking. They were waiting. All of them. Standing still. Looking in the same direction. Toward the control tower. As if they had been given the same instruction at the same time. Detective Cooper's radio cracked again. A final message came through. And it changed everything. "Sir, we just received a message from the main system." Cooper shouted, "What message?" The voice trembled. "It says, 'The next phase has started.'" Then the entire prison went dark. The darkness inside Blackwood State Prison was total. No lights. No alarms. Only the sound of heavy breathing, distant footsteps, and metal doors creaking open deeper in the building. Officer Daniel Brooks switched on his flashlight, his hand shaking slightly as the beam cut through the black hall. Detective Ryan Cooper stood beside him, staring at the control tower above. Somewhere inside that darkness, something had taken over the prison system. And it was still active. Inside cell block D, the prisoners who had stepped out were not running wild. They were walking slowly. Together. Like a group following an invisible order. Brooks whispered, "This isn't a riot." Cooper finished his thought. "It's coordinated." They moved carefully through the corridor, trying to reach the control room. Every step felt heavier than the last. Then, over the radio, a weak voice came through. "Cooper, we found something." It was Sarah Mitchell from the evidence room. "Talk to me," Cooper replied quickly. "We decoded the final layer of Ethan's letters." A pause. Then her voice dropped. It wasn't just signals. It was mapping. Brooks frowned. "Mapping what?" Sarah answered, "People. Not just names. Entire networks." Silence. Then she continued, "Every letter Ethan wrote was identifying who could be controlled, and when." Cooper's face went pale. "So Benson—" "Yes," Sarah said. "He wasn't the leader. He was just the first piece that moved." A loud metallic bang echoed through the prison. Something had hit the control tower doors. Brooks and Cooper ran toward it. Inside, they saw emergency lights flickering back on in unstable bursts. Shadows moved behind glass walls. Then a new voice came over the prison intercom system. Calm. Clear. Familiar. It was Ethan Carter. "Don't be afraid," his voice echoed. Brooks froze. How is he speaking through the system? Cooper looked around. "He's inside the network. He's controlling it." Ethan's voice continued. "This prison was never the real place I was working on." Cooper shouted into the air, "What do you want, Ethan?" A pause. Then Ethan answered, "Completion." Suddenly, all lights in the control tower came back on. Monitors flickered alive. Every camera in the prison activated at once. And on every screen, the same image appeared. Hundreds of names. All connected by lines. A full map of people, places, and movements. Brooks stepped back in shock. "This is insane." Cooper stared at it closely. "These aren't just prisoners, or victims. It's a system." Ethan's voice returned. "You finally see it." The control room doors suddenly locked. A loud mechanical click sealed them inside. Brooks rushed to the door. "We're trapped." Cooper didn't move. He kept staring at the screen. Then he said quietly, "Why reveal this now?" Ethan replied, "Because the first phase is complete." The word "complete" echoed through the prison speakers. Then, far outside the prison walls, distant sirens began to rise. More and more. Not just police. Ambulances. Emergency alerts. Multiple locations. Brooks looked at Cooper. "What's happening out there?" Before Cooper could answer, Sarah's voice came back on the radio. "It's happening everywhere. The names from Ethan's letters, they're all showing activity at the same time." Cooper finally understood. This wasn't about the prison. Ethan finished his sentence through the system. It was never about the prison. A long silence followed. Then Ethan spoke one final time. "And now, you wait for what comes next." The screens went black. The doors unlocked. The power returned. But Ethan Carter's cell was empty. No guards saw him leave. No cameras recorded it. Only one thing remained inside his cell. A single folded letter, addressed to Detective Ryan Cooper. Cooper opened it slowly. Inside was one sentence. "You were not investigating me. I was guiding you to the truth." Outside the prison, the morning sun rose over Blackwood State Prison. But for the first time, no one felt safe. Because the system Ethan built through letters was still running. And somewhere out there, the next phase had already begun.